myfantasysportstalk.com.
Welcome back, Podcast Peeps. This is another edition of My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. It's the Mailbag Question Podcast. We're going to answer more Mailbag questions. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to our last Mailbag podcast. Keep submitting your Mailbag questions. We're not going to stop that, not never. And also keep submitting your topics for our podcast. It's the way we're going to be doing it from now on. So shorter shows, shorter podcasts, topic specific. So you tell us what you want us to talk about, and we'll keep dishing out the content. You'll see more of My Fantasy Podcast. I'm Brandon Reed. My co-host is Dan Shaw. What up, dude?
What's happening, Brandon? It's a pleasure to be on with you, and got my kitty to my right and Brandon right in front of me. I'm ready to go.
I don't know a better way to spend a Wednesday afternoon, honestly. Yeah,
it's actually nice in Buffalo today, so I'll take it. 70 degrees.
I was wondering about that. So now we're kind of in the time period where I'm probably jealous of you, Dan, because we skipped spring altogether. We broke a record Monday, 96 degrees, like the hottest day of that day in May forever. 96 degrees. We're well into the 90s already, Dan. Summer is here. Summer's here. We're sweating.
Yeah, I have beautiful 70-degree weather. I cut down a tree today in that 70-degree weather, so I did it all. Now I'm on the podcast. Cut down a tree and join you.
All in a day's work. Sometimes it bees like that. Today's podcast is going to be interesting because we have a wide variety, a plethora, you might say, of mailbag questions. We'll bring Orlando Torres in here in just a second as well from myfantasysportstalk.com to give his input on all this. But first, we're going to start out really big, Dan. Really, really big. What we do is fantasy on myfantasysportstalk.com and My Fantasy Podcast. So a lot of fantasy here. And this is a great question because I was just thinking about it just the other day, is if I had the top 2-3 pick in the fantasy football draft, which running back would I go with this year? It's time to start thinking about that. Which ones are going to be the home runs? So we got a question about the fantasy running backs. Now we're asking just to rank the top 4 here. So that's one question from our boy John here. We'll get to in just a second. Then we'll jump into some baseball talk. Talk about those Atlanta Braves. Did they just come out of nowhere or what? Leading the NFC, NL East right now. And I don't know. Dan may tell us whether they really came out of nowhere or not, but we'll break them down. And then we want to talk about some fantasy baseball sleepers. We're deep into your fantasy baseball leagues now. So we'll talk about that. And also got a question here for maybe not so much for Dan, but I know Orlando will be into this one, and I'm into it a little bit. But we're going to be talking about the WWE Money in the Bank pay-per-view and Ronda Rousey, another UFC crossover into WWE. So look forward to that. And then we're going to end it with just some nice summer fun. I'm not even going to give too much away about that. Just some nice summer fun. Just a relaxing conversation about summer apparel. So do not miss that. Our boy Orlando Torres is back with us. What's up?
Man, I was gone for a little bit. I already forgot how to work this. How's it going? Good to be back with you.
What's your shirt about all there? This is May 30th, 1970 or something?
A little Jimi Hendrix, a little
Ooh,
back to the
nice.
hippie days.
What, is it say 1970?
Yeah, 1970. There you go, right there.
Okay, so I'm going to really date myself here, but that was almost exactly 8 years before I was born. Yep, believe it or not. Yep, May 31st, 1978. Yours truly. Another legend came into this world. So that was way before my time. But I remember Jimmy. I can hear Jimmy. I listen to Jimmy. I know Jimmy. How's things in San Antonio?
Going good. We're already hitting the hundreds. I'm pretty sure you know about that. So, yeah. Still
Funny you
almost
said that. I was just telling Dan, now it's when Orlando and myself are jealous of Dan's weather, which we hadn't been really probably since, I don't know, August, but 6, 7, 8 months. But now we're jealous of Dan because Dan's just sitting there at 70, whereas I myself here in Arkansas, we broke a high temperature record, as I was telling Dan a second ago, of 96 on Monday. So I know you got to be right there sweltering as well.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think we had 102 earlier. Like, holy God.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It is so hot. And then it's dry heat, so that's even worse. Yeah.
Yep, my poor grass and shrubs and plants, they need water, and they're just not getting it. It's so hot, so hot. So, all right, let's jump into this thing. So we're going to kick it off today in our Mailbag podcast, talking about fantasy football. So this one comes from John Janot. How would you rank these 4 running backs heading into fantasy football 2018? And he gives us a list here. Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, and David Johnson. So let me start off real quick. I think I pretty much know where me and Dan are going to differ here, but I'm going to start out with Ezekiel Elliott because the Cowboys do have a stellar offensive line, and I'm not sold on Dak being the quarterback to pass it 25 times or more a game, which he should not really, in my opinion. So I think Zeke is going to be right back in there and have a great shot to win the rushing title for sure. Feed Zeke. And I mean, that's what I would do. Number 2, I'm going with Todd Gurley just because I think that Rams defense is going to keep the ball in their offense's hands so much. And he's going to have great opportunity. I think he really had a bounce back year last year, and I don't see that going anywhere. So I like Todd Gurley a lot. It gets a little bit trickier here. I'm going to go with Le'Veon Bell just because he keeps doing what he does. And I know Big Ben is not getting any younger, so he's not going to be willing to look to sling it a whole lot. And I just like Le'Veon's style. I think he's pretty hard to defense with his stutter step style. And I like his game a little bit more at this point than David Johnson, who comes in 4th for me, because a lot of questions with David Johnson. I wrote down a few of them. Too much unknown for me coming into next season. Is he really elite? He had a great year before last, but is he really elite and he's going to bounce right back? I don't know that for sure. Will the wrist injury linger? I don't know. New coach Steve Wilkes and his scheme, how is that going to work? I don't know. Running behind a fullback, which could be great for David Johnson, which they're going to bring back. I believe they signed the fullback from Atlanta, so he's actually going to be running behind a bruiser now. So I don't know how that's going to work. Could be great. I think it could be great, but I don't know how that's going to work. Having to carry too much of the load in defense of stacking the boxes on him, because he's either going to have Sam Bradford, Fragile Sam, or a rookie quarterback as his quarterback, and an aging talent pool when it comes to the wide receivers and weapons on the outside. So those are just some of the questions I had about David Johnson, but Johnson and Bell could probably flip-flop, but I'm definitely going Zeke, and then Gurley is 1, 2. Dan, what you got?
Let me just remind folks, I am the reigning fantasy football champion of our league, myfantasysportstalk.com. All we do is fantasy sports, and I just win. So you're going to want to listen to my rankings here.
How many titles you got?
Fantasy football? I mean, in my lifetime or recently?
Come on, keep it real. Keep it real, dog. Keep it real. You got as many as I do.
All right, so my rankings. I actually have David Johnson number 1. I
figured as much.
It's a wrist injury. Who cares? It's not going to impact him at all. He
missed the whole season. He missed the whole season. That's serious.
Not a knee injury. It's not a knee. It's not impacting his performance being a running back. It's a wrist injury that might impact him eating cereal in the morning. It's not going to impact him rushing rock.
Carrying the ball.
He's going to get 30 touches a game he's going to average more touches than anyone on this list. And he's going to be the Cardinals offense. I don't care about stacking the box. They're going to throw the ball, and they're going to throw it to. They're going to throw it to him. He had 80 receptions 2 years ago when he played the full 16 games. He's their number 1 receiver, in addition to being their number 1 running back. He's number 1.
I think knowing that he's going to play a full 16-game schedule, I think Zeke will be taken number 1 by a lot of people. I think a lot of people are going to be scared. I know you said it's just a wrist injury, but you got to carry the ball with an arm, Dan, for David Johnson, and that team is going to suck. So I don't know. Orlando, is Orlando back?
Yeah, no, I was able to see. I don't know if y'all were able to see me. I had Mama calling me, so I just got a new iPad. so it's still connected with my iPhone. So she was doing a FaceTime call, so it threw off the whole call.
Oh,
I
Mama
forgot
trying
I
to
was
join the podcast. Oh,
Yeah, we got Dan
Yeah.
Schalk's dad trying to just show us up at every corner. Now we got Mama interrupting and joining the podcast in Orlando's in. So I don't know. It was a god awful sound. I had to just cut you.
Oh yeah. Oh, see,
Okay.
yeah, you cut me, but I was able to hear you. So
Okay, good.
So one, I sorry. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and throw Zeke one. I just because I think the Cowboys, the wide receivers are a mess. I think there's going to be a run heavy offense. So I'll put Zeke there. I'm gonna go with Gurley because I'm not gonna count out Gurley. I just from what he's seen, even if it's just catching the ball to the backfield. Gurley I would put right behind Zeke. I'm gonna go with David Johnson after that. It was just a wrist injury. I'm excited to see him back, and then I'll go with Bell last. Even that was Bell. I think you could flip flop Bell and Johnson. I know Dan wouldn't agree with that, but with Bell, as much as he thinks he's hated in Pittsburgh, or if he is, you know what you're gonna get. He's probably gonna be a headache going into training camp or into the preseason. He's going to have a slow start in the beginning of the season, but once you have Bell, give him a couple weeks to warm up. You already know what you're going to get to Bell, and him alone, I think, could carry your fantasy team for quite a way. So that's how I would rank those guys.
Yep, I kind of agree with you there. I think we're more along the same lines there. I think you really probably could flip flop Johnson to Bell. It's just a lot of unknown for both of them. But to me, it's just I think Le'Veon Bell's style is hard to adjust to for defenses with his stutter steps, and I think he's always going to be, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be a factor. But appreciate the question, John. We're covering a lot of fantasy football in early May for you guys. So I hope you're taking notes and saving all these podcasts. Bookmark the site and keep referring back to them. Although our opinions will change from now to fantasy draft time for sure. Let's move on and talk a little baseball. This one comes from Mooney Russell. Are the Atlanta Braves for real? First place in the NL East, but for how long? So I broke down some of the stats before I turned it over to Dan, our baseball guru, and even Orlando is much more of a baseball guru than I am. But they're third in runs scored right now, ninth in runs allowed. Only 8-8 in their new park, though. I mean, what the hell is that all about? You open up a new park and you're barely playing 500 ball? Man, 6-4 in their last 10, so slumping just a little bit. They are number one in the National League in team batting, almost in every category that I saw except home runs, which, I mean, they're right there, but pretty much running away with a lot of categories. Offensively, as far as team batting goes, a middle-of-the-road team pitching, but their bullpen isn't really giving up a ton of runs. And their top four guys in their rotation are 15-6 right now. So, to me, Dan, I guess the question you really have to pose is, and you would know much better than I, are the Phillies or Nationals just the better teams, and it's going to work itself out eventually in the long run during a long MLB season?
I look at this Braves squad very similar to my Houston Astros of 3 years ago when they kind of shocked the world. Their prospects started coming up. So you're seeing Ozzie Albies for the Braves, Ronald Acuna, along with some others, get mixed in with some veterans that the Braves have and start to light the world on fire. I don't think they're going to end up winning the division, but I think they could be a playoff team this year. You look at the Astros, they led the AL West 3 years ago in 2015 for most of the season, and then it ultimately fell to the Rangers, losing out on the division but getting a wild card. They did win the wild card and lost in the ALDS. So I see a similar fate for the Braves this year. They have a ton of talent on their squad, no doubt. You just go up and down their lineup with Albies and Acuna, like I mentioned, Dansby Swanson, the first overall pick from a few years ago. And then they sprinkle in the veterans like Freddie Freeman, Nick Markakis, who might get to 3,000 hits before his career is over. The signing of Joey Bats looks phenomenal as he's manning down third base of all positions. And then their rotation has young arms that are just performing. Sean Newcomb is a stud. Remember that name, fantasy baseball wise. Guys, you can't because I have him on my team, so don't worry about it. But there's names up and down that team that are just performing maybe a little bit sooner than they should. So they are for real. But if there's any team in the NL East that's going to make a run, it's going to be the Nationals. They have the most talent on the roster, probably more so right now with the age and experience than the Braves do. So I ultimately see the Nationals coming up and winning that division. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Braves make the playoffs this year.
There you go. Yeah, it's a long season. This may start to work itself out a little bit, and you may even have seen that over the past 10 games as they're 6-4 after getting off to a very hot start. But it is a long season, and we've seen it before. But and I didn't even notice that I had a couple of those guys, some of those hot Braves on my team, as Araldi's Vizcaíno. Were the relief pitchers on my team. Consistent, good numbers pretty much every single night. And Nick Markakis is on my team too. So I appreciate what you guys are doing in Atlanta. What's up with opening a new ballpark, though, and only going 8-8 so far, Dan? I mean, you got to do better than that.
Yeah, that's a little tough. I would like to see the matchups, maybe the teams that they played. Maybe they played some good teams at home. But, I mean, they were terrible last year.
Is that 4 series they've even played? Is that what it equates to? Maybe 4 series total at home? So, yeah. So you've only played 4 teams. Yep. Orlando, what do you think about the Braves? I know you've been keeping up. You're 5-1 in the freaking fantasy baseball league. Do you have any Braves on your team, or what do you think about them?
Yeah, actually got nice. He was actually a waiver pickup for me not a couple weeks ago. He's been really good for me, actually, pretty solid. Kurt Suzuki. So he's been racking up some points. I think he's at over 200 points already, so that was a nice addition. I mean, I've been keeping up with them a little bit. They've been hitting pretty good. Now, Dan knows more this, but with me, when it's early, like in May or June, and you get questions like contenders or pretenders, all I know is that it's a long season. So you have to let this get some time. I think we've seen a lot of teams who get hot early on and they just kind of fade out. And then you have teams that are not so good early on in the season. You kind of see them starting to heat up right around going into July, August, September. So, I mean, I like what I'm seeing right now, but as far as contenders or pretenders, I'm still going to say it's still too early to tell.
Yep. Definitely a long season. But we'll see what happens, Mooney. I got to start winning some home games. They didn't build that brand new multi-billion-dollar stadium for nothing. So got to sell more hot dogs, got to win more games. But thanks for the question, Mooney Russell. Let's keep it right here in baseball and talk some more fantasy baseball. This one comes from the Bullpen Guys. Any solid fantasy baseball sleeper? Saw your article on Suarez and Romero, Dan. Picked them both up. I love you for Romero, but I regret Suarez. Limit of 25 pickups per season, says the Bullpen Guys. First of all, 25 pickups per season? We just talked about how long the freaking MLB season is. This is worse than some Dan Schultz commissionership stuff here. 25 pickups in a long-ass baseball season? You know, they play 162 games. Wow. That's my first problem with that. Geez, you got to make them count. So, I'm too speechless. Steven, talk. Dan, you talk about waiver wire pickups.
I'm a huge fan of limiting moves. I think it actually puts the owners responsible on drafting well. I think in our fantasy football league we have a lot of owners who can't draft worth of garbage, so it puts it all on. They need all these waiver claims to try and improve their roster because they're terrible drafters.
It puts it all on drafting, though, especially baseball. Dan, it puts all on drafting.
So I'm in a dynasty league and a keeper league that are very serious, and those at least have 40 and 50 moves each year. So 25, yeah, that's definitely low. Like for our football league, we had 15, 20, 25, something like that. That would like equate to maybe 10 moves in the football season all year. So it's definitely a low number. So my apologies on Suarez. He took another L today, so not good. But I got you, Romero, and he's going to be a stud for a long time. When you're looking at guys out there, I mean, I don't even know if you want to make another move. You probably want to wait a month or two so you don't run out of moves down the home stretch. But I mean, if there's some guys out there, I would like to know the size of the league. So feel free to send a message to the Facebook page, the My Fantasy Sports Talk. Will answer. You can give me in-depth prospects on who's available, your league, and things like that, and I'd happily answer them. But just some guys, like I'm looking at our fantasy league. There's not a whole lot of guys out there that I'm loving. Matt Kemp was a name that I'm surprised he's available. But honestly, it's slim pickings, and we're in a 12-man league in our ESPN format. So I would rather get to know more specifics than give you some sleepers that are available, because they might not be available in your league, and just get your hopes up. But with that limit, I'm with Brandon. That's a little low, 25 per year. I mean, you have until September. We're in May, and you've used 2 at least, maybe more. That's not good.
I'm just glad our league doesn't have limits because that's really what's keeping me afloat here. Because
I got you, Brandon.
I'm adding 2 new pitchers every day just to get some numbers up, and it still didn't even work last week. But 25 seems ridiculously low. But yeah, looking at our league, and I agree with what Dan said, is you may just want to hang on if you only got 25 until it gets serious, especially depending on your standing right now. What's your record? What kind of moves do you need to make? Are you desperate yet? Because I looked at our league, as Dan said, 12-man league, and there ain't much. And I even declined to make a move today, and I got unlimited. But Brad Miller, John Hicks, that's a couple of the guys from the batting side that are averaging pretty decent numbers. And Bartolo Colon, Mike Friars, Clayton Richard, those are just some of the pitchers. And I think I've had all those guys and dropped them. Those are some of my, replaceable guys that I float in and out. But I don't know that you really have any kind of big sleepers on the waiver wire right now, particularly in our league, that's going to do any kind of thing of substance. You might want to wait till injuries, guys get called up, sent down, DL, whatever, and see who stays hot or gets hot and may stick on a roster before you really start spinning one of your 25 moves. That's tough. Orlando, how did you get to 5-1? What kind of fantasy sleeper advice do you have for the bullpen guys?
Well, my pitching has been off and on. I think my hitters and, my outfielders have been really saving me.
Well, let me ask you something real quick before you go on. Are you even making moves, or did you just draft a badass team and you're just letting it go?
I can't say too much about that. I mean, I just kind of drafted what I drafted. If anything, if we could go back, I would have focused more on taking pitchers early on, because now I know those are basically the running backs of fantasy baseball. So, I mean, that kind of hurt me, and that's probably going to hurt me in the long run unless I make some moves. As far as the waiver wire goes, I mean, I picked up a guy like Abreu or Suzuki. I mean, those guys have helped. But other than that, there's not really any sleepers that I picked up, especially in a 12-man league and so deep rosters. I mean, there's not really, the waivers kind of dry. So you got to kind of pick and choose and hope, you pick up a guy who could help you at some points. So that's kind of, what I've been doing, and just really relying on who's playing and adding subs and drops and stuff like that.
Yep. That's tough, man. The thing sticks out most about your question, the bullpen guys, is 25 pickups. That's tough. That is tough. That is a strict league right there. So make the best out of it. Good luck. And like Dan said, send us some more info. He'll be more than happy to give you a little bit more feedback, but need more info when it comes to spinning your precious 25 pickups. That's it. So, all right, let's talk a little WWE. This next question comes from WWE Braun Strowman from Twitter. Orlando, can you believe that? Braun is reaching out to us now. I've verified, I don't think this is the actual account of Braun Strowman, but
No.
it goes pretty far. It goes pretty far. So anyway, what do you guys think about Ronda Rousey fighting Nia Jax at Money in the Bank? Too soon? All name value with Ronda? What's the deal? From WWE Braun Strowman. So I know you probably keep up with this a lot more. I don't really know that Dan keeps up with this a whole lot, but there's a lot of different ways this could probably go to me right now. Orlando, I could possibly see them letting her have the title for that impact factor. It's Rousey. It's another UFC crossover into WWE, but Nia Jax just got that women's title at WrestleMania, and it was a great story. But what I find a little bit more interesting right now, this second, is that what kind of storyline are you going to draw between these two? Because as far as I know, they're both face characters. You may have to turn one of them heel. I mean, I don't know. But here's the other thing that concerns me is if Ronda is still just like a part-timer like Brock Lesnar is, I do not like it at all. I definitely don't like the title on her, because I think one of the worst things that the WWE is getting away with is keeping that title on Brock Lesnar when he's a part-timer and he's not even there. What happened to wrestling, man? The title used to get defended once a month on Monday Night Raw. Now it's not even there. You don't even see the title but once every 2 or 3 months. I hate that. I think that's ridiculous. And I saw something the other day that leads me to believe the reason Brock Lesnar still has the title is because you know who the longest reigning champ in I think the modern era is? It's CM Punk. You know how that ended. So I think they're putting that title around Brock Lesnar and keeping it on him to break Punk's record Brock being another UFC guy to kind of stick it to CM Punk, who left to go to UFC. So they're like, all right, we'll bring in another UFC guy and he'll break your freaking record. So now I think it's just out of spite because there's no reason for Brock Lesnar to have that title. But are we going to be seeing more of the same with Ronda Rousey at the Money in the Bank? Is she going to win that title and then be a part-timer?
I don't know if she's going to be a part-time. I see reports that she's signed on as a full-time performer. Now, obviously as a fighter, she's tremendous. Maybe not so much her stand-up game, but her ground game is pretty good. But as far as in wrestling, she's not really polished yet. She hasn't had that many matches. Her WrestleMania match is pretty good, but she was obviously carried by Angle, Triple H, and Steph. So it's been a pretty good story, but I do think it's too soon. I don't think she's going to win. There could be a number of factors of how you win this match to continue on the feud or storyline. But if they do put the title on her, it's definitely on name value. It's just marketing. That's basically what it is, because I don't think she's ready yet. As big as she is, I don't think she's ready yet to hold a title.
Well, and that's the thing. She hasn't even really had much in-ring action yet, right?
Yeah.
She had the WrestleMania match with Stephanie, but, that ain't real,
Yeah, exactly. She was carried on. She had 3 other people to help her carry on in that match. So, there wasn't as much pressure on her. But, these one-on-one matches, transitioning from fighting to wrestling is a little bit different. So, I don't think she's ready to hold a title. But if they do, it's just name value and marketing if they do go that route.
And they took a little bit of bad press recently over the whole greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, which it's not that they just left the female wrestlers, which they've been pushing the divas or the women's division a lot lately. If you watch wrestling as of late, it's even main eventing a lot of these shows, SmackDown and Raw, is women's matches. So it's done, or put them on the roster for the greatest Royal Rumbles. They weren't allowed. It's in Saudi Arabia. The female competitors were not even allowed in the country. So they took some heat off of that they went that far as to do that. And didn't involve it. So is this a way to maybe make up or gain some even more traction and kind of say all is forgotten?
I don't think he's all forgotten. Even there were some males, and Corey Graves is one of them, who took some heat too, because I know he went into social media and kind of basically said that the company contradicted themselves, which they did. You're trying to start this whole equality stuff and women's movement, and then you go to a place like Saudi Arabia. Nothing against that. It was a beautiful complex. It was an awesome event. I watched it. But the fact that they didn't allow any females, or there's whatever is going on. I won't comment too much about that. That's something else going on. But yeah, I think they contradicted themselves a little bit. I even me and Dylan talked about that. All these females they have on the roster, and they still can't give them their own pay-per-view or their own show or something. I think that'd be pretty interesting to see. They go to a place in Saudi Arabia where women aren't allowed to wrestle or to dress a certain way. I thought they contradicted themselves a bit. I don't think they could get past that. I mean, that's already done. But I don't think this match is a way to kind of forget about all that. I think it's just total marketing here. You got a name like Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax. People are going to watch just to see. Even people who don't watch wrestling will tune in just to watch Ronda Rousey.
I think it would be a good opportunity for her to compete at a very high level and take Nia Jax to the brink of defeat where the folks think that she's going to win, but let's keep the strap around Nia Jax's waist, is just off winning it off WrestleMania, like I said, and just a great story with Nia Jax, and I think the folks love her too. So I think that's probably the best case, but WWE, they always do a 180 on me from what I think should happen. But like I said, with the whole, what do you think about the Brock Lesnar situation? Though, I mean, I just hate part-timers. I mean, he's not even there. You don't even lay eyes on the belt on your Monday night shows.
Well, here's the thing. There's even reports that he didn't want to be there. He didn't even care about that damn title. He's already told them to give it to someone else, and they are throwing millions at him. I don't know if they despite Punk that much just to have him break that record, or just because he's a household name. Whether you love him or hate him, people are going to tune in to see Brock Lesnar. And I guess that's one thing that WWE has a problem with lately is they don't have a lot of those household names. They're trying to build up Reigns. Look how that's turning. Everywhere he goes, there's people chanting "F you, Reigns," or they're just completely crapping on this guy. You got a bunch of other guys who are not getting shots, and the company is a mess. I mean, I still tune in to watch the product, but as much money as it makes, it still has a lot of flaws. The company has a lot of flaws, and they kind of do need to focus more on the wrestling on the mainstream shows. As far as Brock, I don't know how much longer he's going to hold the title, because I know he's planning on having a fight sometime this year in the UFC, if not early next year. Dana White even confirmed that, to expect Brock Lesnar back in the octagon pretty soon. So I'm not sure if he's going to be allowed to hold the title while fighting in the UFC. I really don't know with this cross-marketing stuff going on. So, I mean, that's an interesting topic. But I would like to see the title getting taken off of Brock, too.
I can tell you this. I don't remember how the timeline stacks up. I think we're probably less than a month before Brock breaks that the title record reign of CM Punk. And I don't know when Brock is scheduled to be in a WWE event again. I don't think that Money in the Bank's not till like June though, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's scheduled. I think he has a couple appearances, but he probably won't have to wrestle again until August, which is SummerSlam. So it might be a while.
So he's going to have the record the next time the title is on the line.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty certain is that the timeline works out that way. So then I think you probably lose it. And I really think that's part of the case now. No other reason to keep it on it. But I hate that, man. It just sucks. Like you used to watch Nitro and Raw back in the day. The title, some kind of title was defended pretty much every show. And even the World Championship was defended at least once a month on your main Monday night shows. Now you don't even see the damn title, but they get away with it because it's a new world. It's a new world as far as marketing and merchandising, and they get away with it. So, but we'll talk more about that as Money in the Bank approaches in June. So great question. Appreciate that, Braun Strowman. And don't come after me. Anything you want to do is all right with me, buddy. All right. So let's move on. The next question. Well, let me read the question first. That may make more sense before I tell you who it's from. Sandals or sneakers in the summer? If sandals, what kind? Thong, yoga, biblical, Nike, with socks or without socks? This question comes from Rex Ryan's wet dream. Just kidding. Freddie Orns. So I don't even know where to go with it. I'm going to say this is light summer fun here. And I don't even know what yoga or biblical sandals would even be. Dan, you fielded the question, so throw it back to us. Too.
I didn't know what those different types. I heard of thong sandals, the ones in between your toes there. I hope I'm getting Freddie Orntz jiving right now, talking between my toes. But yeah, it's biblical. There's some other ones. It's the variations of where the straps go. Basically, is what I gathered. I don't know, man. I just wear sandals. I'm not a sneaker guy unless I'm cutting the lawn or doing something manly. I am either not footless, shoeless around the house, or sandals if I have to go out. But it's rare. I only get about 3 months of sandal weather, so I take full advantage. I just have slip-on. I don't know. I get Nike. I don't know. They're actually Under Armour, but they just slide right in. Nothing touches my toes. Keep it away.
Yeah,
keep it away from my toes.
You got to remember, it depends on where you live too, because Dan's wearing 2 pairs of socks and long johns through 8 months of the year. So yeah, it all depends on where you live. Orlando, what's your fashion sense on this question?
I'm a sneaker guy. I mean, in my closet, I got a bunch of Jordans, LeBrons, I have a couple KDs. I haven't bought shoes in the past year. Kind of got a little bit expensive. So I'm more of a sneaker guy. However, lately, before me and my ex kind of broke out, she always told me, you need to start wearing sandals around the house. You need to stop wearing those Jordans around the house or whatever. I said, okay. So I think these are biblical. That's what I'm wearing currently. Is that biblical? Kind of like
it's not even close to biblical.
That's more than Nike.
That's what I think. That's what I had.
Well, see, then there you go. I'm not much of a sandal guy. I don't even know. I don't even know what the hell yoga is. I'm thinking of a little pose or something.
I can't figure that one out either.
Yeah, so then I'm not much of a.
It's an actual. Guy, so. It is. I mean, this dude knows his sandals. I googled it. Yoga sandals are. I mean, it's a variation of the strap. There's a definition of it. So Google it. Yeah, do it.
Well, to me, I mix it up. I'm not going to say I'm one or the other. It depends on my attire, the event. it just depends. If I'm going to wear jeans, where I might be, how much walking I might have to do. It's both. It's both for me. But casually, yes, I'm wearing a sandal, which I just call flip-flops. I'm not going to go into the degrees. I just call it flip-flops. So currently what I would style if I was going out and not just casually hanging around the house are these Oakley flip-flops right here. I mean, I guess this is considered, it's a thong. It's a thong style, but it's a flip-flop to me. It's a flip-flop. Break it down any way you want to, but these stylish white Oakleys is what I would sport. I also currently have some white Feli tennis shoes that I would sport. It just depends. It depends. So I'm not going to say I'm one or the other, but what I can tell you is never good is socks with any kind of sandal. That's the complete dorkiness. That's something you would see in Del Boca Vista Phase 2. It just doesn't belong. So I will say that. So, keep it real. Keep it real, guys. Don't be silly with it. But a little bit of mixture, a little sneaker, a little sandal. But now that it is summertime, we got to start talking about these things and keeping everyone informed. And you come to us for fantasy advice and fantasy information, but we're not above giving you food advice or even apparel advice from time to time. So we're glad you could join us, and we're glad we can make your day and your week that much better. And now it's time to go online and do a little shopping. Maybe find you some biblical sandals. That's it for this one. Appreciate all the questions, guys. We've changed a lot up on the podcast, My Fantasy Podcast here recently. Going to be changing more things up on the site. So just want to make sure we get your feedback. So Dan, what do you want to tell the peeps at home about some of the changes we made over the podcast and the site and everything like that before we get out of here?
Yeah, we're doing a little refresh, redesign to the site, and obviously the podcast, shorter episodes, more topics, right to the point. So whether you're catching us on Facebook, on myfantasysportstalk.com, YouTube, iTunes, to some other ones, we're all over. I don't even know where we are half the time, but we're there, and you're listening. So just enjoy the changes, and if you have constructive feedback, criticism, anything, get at us. Our boy Gilly was blowing up a storm earlier, and we love it. So let us know what you think about the shows, and definitely check out the website for all the great articles. Entertainment section's blowing up as usual. So we're keeping it good, and it's going to look a lot better. We already have a video section now up on the site, so you can catch us directly and watch our videos right on the site. So a lot of big things happening. And David Johnson, #1 fantasy running back, 2018.
You heard it right there. What better way to end the show? But on the for real, send us your mailbag questions, of course. We're not going to neglect that. We're going to have mailbag podcasts separately. As you can see, check out the last mailbag podcast that we just completed. And also send your topics to us. We'll cover what you want to talk about. It's sometimes hard for us to know what you want to talk about, so we just make up things. So avoid yourself having to listen to podcasts where we just make up things, and submit your topics and your feedback. So until next time, for Orlando Torres, my co-host Dan Schalk, I am Brandon Reed. Next time podcast. Peace.